I also have Shoma Mitra, Veena Chaudhary, Priyanka Khandelkar, and myself, Cam Agarwal. So, Narmi, really, really happy to have you with us today. My first question to you would be in regards to your particular contribution to the book, The Wings of a Woman. And your chapter is called When Life Does a Double Take. Can you tell us a little bit about this double take that happened in your own life?
Yeah, I guess for me, the biggest thing was, as I say in my chapter, I've never believed in divorce. For it was like always till death do us part. And so when the marriage ended, and I found myself with my 1-year-old boy, as a single mother in an apartment with zero money, it was just that's when life kind of hit me in the face. I was like, oh, okay, I can try and make this work, or literally it's going to be sink or swim right now, and that's kind of where the title of the book really came from.
Yeah, that leads me directly into my, second question, which is like, yours was an arranged marriage, sort of. And arranged marriages in today's time are different. They're not like you see your spouse for the first time at the altar or at the mandap. It's more of a negotiation. It's more of, I'm willing for my parent to find someone for me, and I have a right to say no if things don't work out, right?
100%.
And if you look at the data of marriages, while in the US, the 40 to 50% marriages end up in a divorce, if you look up at the data, especially in India, where yet today 90% of the marriages are arranged marriages, and it's just 4%. So, my question to you is this lack of divorce a sign of that there's no other option and these women are essentially trapped? Or is it a sign that through the proper alliance and through the proper channels of checking all the boxes and making sure everything is really aligned and it's gonna cause this amazing marital relationship? So where do you weigh in on that aspect?
I think it's got two factors to do with it. I think when you go down the arranged marriage way of life, I guess, especially in India, the family weighs in very heavily. And I guess when it comes to divorce as well, it's not just you and your partner. You're essentially saying goodbye to another family as well. So I kind of think when it's the arranged marriage, there's a lot more pressure to really take into account what's my extended family going to think. Where do they weigh in, because they were a big part of the process of everyone getting together. Um, I don't think the stigma of being divorced is as relaxed in India as it is probably in the Western world. I mean, I know when I went through my separation and divorce, the stigma that was with me going, oh my God, I'm a single mom, and how do you cope with that, and what do you do? Despite having the most amazing support network that I had, it still weighed a ton on me. And even now at times that'll pop up in my head. I'll be like, oh, wow, I'm still a single mom. Like, how does this work? So I think the culture of how we're brought up and the culture where we're raised up, I do believe that plays a big part in it as well. As you said, with love marriages versus arranged marriage, I think a lot of people, even though they're arranged today, there is an element of love before you go ahead and you say, yep, we're doing this for the rest of our life. You still have that connection. So I don't think that stigma is there anymore, but I think it's just what does society think of us? Where will we be? And potentially even just a support network in India versus some places like US and here in Australia it's not as much, it's not as widely accepted over there to be a divorcee. Whereas here and I guess in the US, a more Western country, it's starting to kind of be accepting, okay, things didn't work out. Let's move on, let both parties get on with life and move on with life.
Yeah. Um, can I ask you a question, Narmie? Because I loved your story. And, the first part of your story and throughout you said you're a bit of a rebellious little child. So you loved saying no. If someone said, don't do it, you want to do it, right? Yeah. So with that, what did you, and I'm looking at my questions here because I've forgotten what I was going to ask you. How has that helped, that little fighting girl spirit that you had? So how has that helped you in this journey that, your dad said, oh, I won't give the story away because we want our readers to read that. But, just let's tell our readers that how that little rebelliousness in you helped you through to what you are today, a successful businesswoman. Running your own.
Yeah, I've always been, I guess, the what I call the black sheep of the family. So always, for me, I guess questioning authority and being rebellious in my own little way was always there. It helped me a lot when actually being able to take the first steps of going through the separation. I was the first in my, I guess, friendship group to get married. I was young, so I was 30 when I had my little one. And when I went through the separation, or when I was thinking about going through the separation, everybody was like, no, look, child needs their mum and the dad, which is absolutely true, they do. But for me, fundamentally, my son had to grow up in a happy household. And my version of a happy household, unfortunately, didn't end up, I couldn't see both of us being together. So having that, always being the person that went no and always being known as the rebellious one, for me, this was also me going against what does society want? What will society accept? How will society see me? It wasn't, so it helps. It's always helped me just being able to take the steps I need to take. And even in my in my ventures, I started off as a recruiter, first recruitment company, failed miserably. And to not just let that failure really drag me even more under than what I was, to go, no, I just cannot fail my son. And as you'll see in my chapter, he's my everything. He's the love of my life. And so constantly having that, no, whatever it takes, that success factor, it's always there for me. And always going against the grain, I guess, for lack of a better word. It's given me the strength I've needed to just keep pushing forward and challenging the norms to see what can actually be accepted versus what I perceive as being accepted.
And your son seeing that as, he grows up with you, and I'm sure he'll be just as open-minded as you are. And that's a wonderful way to go. And, in spite of troubles, like you said, you started your business. It was hard. You tried to get employment. In spite of being a recruiter, you would think, she knows everything. She knows every damn secret in the book to get a job. And it was still hard, right? And then you did the most difficult thing, which is starting your own enterprise, because it takes a lot of courage. It's not easy. Like all of us know, all of us who started businesses, it's not a piece of cake at all. It's great to get a business ABN number and say you're a business person, but to lift it off the ground, get sales. How did you do that with a child and being a single mom and all the other challenges that come with it?
With a lot of difficulty. I wish I could say it was easy. And I think a lot of people look at the entrepreneurial lifestyle and go, wow, they've got it all. They can do what they want to do when they want to do. But I guess a lot of people don't really understand that if we don't work, we don't get paid. We don't have holiday leave. We don't have any of that. But the biggest thing for me is I had the most, and I still do have the most amazing support network. And that has been the backbone of everything that has happened and enables me to get through my failures. So my dad has been my biggest cheerleader, my mum and my dad. And then my friends, I didn't really have friends around me that would just be like, oh, you'll be fine, you'll be great, don't worry about it. They really just spoke the hard truth, which obviously at times we don't want to hear. But, you know, they gave it to me how I needed it. They were there to support me in whatever way, shape or form. Even now, you know, my parents are there for me. If I have to go for a meeting or have to go interstate and I can't obviously take my son with me, my mum looks after him. So she'll drop whatever she needs to do to be there to support me. So having that support network around me and having a group of people that I can just reach out to and be myself and be vulnerable and really just go, this is hard. I'm struggling. You know, this isn't working for me. Where can I go? Or having people to bounce ideas off and go, what do you think? Is this going to work? That has really helped me to maintain sanity. And, you know, it enables me to be happy, because if I'm not happy, then I can see the direct correlation in my son. Whenever I'm down and out, that's it. He's gone. He's like, oh no, mum, that's it. So yeah, I guess that's my biggest takeaway out of everything is you need that support network around you.
Absolutely. And that would be your message to people going it alone as well, that look for that support network.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
I love all the conversation, like what Shoma asked, and Narmie, you are like on top of everything. Like, you know the perfect answer for every question. I just love that because you have so much clarity. And I think I love when I meet people who have so much clarity where they are going, what they're doing. And I want to understand one thing from you, Narmie. So externally, people see something else, right? But internal struggles are so deep, which no one knows about. So during this whole journey of yours, which is so inspiring, what was the inner struggle going on? Like first separating and then even starting from scratch, like you just had 3 years of experience in recruiting before you started even your business. Like for someone like me, I will be like, oh, do I have the confidence? Do I have all the capabilities? Do I have all the skills, right? So when you were going through all these different phases, what was the inner struggle which no one knows about?
The biggest one is really, is this going to work? And you know, so many times I'd look at myself and go, I've failed. You know, I've failed everything. You know, like you'd look at it and I'd be like, oh God, I failed life. You know, I've failed my parents. My parents must be so disappointed. And you know, that's one of the biggest things we all kind of have out there is, did we fail as a child? Have we failed our parents? And then it would go from, wow, I failed as a child to, wow, I'm failing as a mum. Like I can't even support my child. And if I can't get this business working, then that's me as a failure too. So, you know, is my son going to grow up seeing me as an absolute failure in life? And what, you know, where's that going to lead him? What's going to happen to him if he's going to constantly seeing me as a failure? So there's definitely, and I mean, there still are heaps of times where I look at it and go, oh, failed again. Great. Awesome. But I think one of the best things is my dad always instilled in me, and my parents always instilled, was never give up. I was a sporting person when I grew up, so that tendency to never give up, and there has to be a way to just make it work, whatever it is, has kind of enabled me to move through those periods and try and turn what I keep seeing as a constant failure into a success, and to try and inspire other people out there and go, yeah, you can feel like a failure on the inside. And that old adage of, you know, that duck on the surface going, yeah, this is really cool, and underneath is like, oh my God. So the amount of times my life is literally, I'm falling apart inside, but have to keep it together for my son. And that's probably it, is I'm a complete failure. And that just is a rotating kind of story for me.
I love that, Narmie. Go ahead, Shoma.
Sorry. I'm just going to say, does that take a toll on you as a person? that you're the the proverbial duck, furiously paddling but smooth on the surface?
It takes a toll. So I make sure that I take time out for myself, and I exercise, and that's usually my time out, or I read a book, so I'll just totally zone out. But as I said, I've got a great support network, so I can freely talk to my dad about anything and everything that's going on. I've got friends that I can lean on when life is really hitting dirt bottom. But yeah, mentally and emotionally, it can absolutely take a toll to the point you just feel like you're burning out. And I guess during COVID time especially, it did take a toll. But having that support network, and I set up the structure so my friends would check in on me, I would check in on them. But at the same time, it also is what inspires me and spurs me on to keep going and to turn whatever failures are kind of being thrown at me into, okay, how can I make this a success? How can I not make it push me down? But what am I going to learn from it to keep going up further and further?
That's such an important message for so many single moms going through what you're going. It's that not just that support network, but that you must acknowledge that, yes, there are troubles sometimes, and there are, you can't put on that brave face all the time, and it's okay to let go and to be able to tell your parents or your family or your friends that you're not okay. And that's just as important. Yeah, so I'll let any other panelists ask questions. I've been asking too many.
Narmie, thank you so much. First of all, like, this whole endeavor came about because I had spent a day counseling a young lady who was in the middle of a divorce. And she did have a lot of support, but she didn't know her rights, and her family didn't know her rights or what they could do. And I'd kind of come to Priyanka and Shoma, and I was saying, I said, the person who's going through the storm sometimes doesn't see what resources they have or that they can access. And it's everybody else who's around them that needs to, especially within our culture, that we have to educate so that they can, like you said, like your friends gave you the hard truth. And so that's how this kind of came about, where everyone said, wait a minute, yeah, you're so right. And we have all these experiences, and we said, let's come together with this book. So, you've been so gracious in how you've narrated your story, but there's parts of it where you aren't giving yourself credit for the fact that, one, asking for help is a skill. And it's something that many people do have difficulty doing, especially when it comes to relationships. And you did exercise that. And then the other thing is that, having support around us can be a passive thing. It can be that, oh, I've got all these people around us or close by. Learning how to use it and give back and use it respectfully is also a skill. And it's so for both of those things, first of all, I want to say hats off. I also went through a very difficult divorce. It was very difficult. And I'm saying this, I went through my divorce 6+ years after I had lost a baby. And at the time that I was going through the divorce, at that time, I remember saying one day, this is worse than that. Because at that time, I knew my baby was safe, she was safely in heaven, and, but I had these 2 living children that I had to figure all these, all of the next steps out. I didn't know the how, like you said, and, you just take it one step at a time. You just know enough. You kind of just know, okay, this is it. The road ends here. So what I was hoping you'd talk about a little bit was maybe how you navigated the legal process, because it is incredibly overwhelming. And sometimes that scares a lot of people. Also not knowing their rights, because I know you've talked about that a little bit, about the financial struggles and stuff. Can you talk a little bit about how the system, whether there was any support from your now ex-husband, not voluntarily maybe, but the system does have safeguards in place.
Yeah, so when I was going through it, I guess I was lucky because my background was also in law as well. So I did have that. And I had one of my closest mates is a family lawyer. So I had her to reach out to as well. But the Australian government is fantastic. As a single mum, there's benefits in place that you can reach out to. It's not a lot, but it's that safety net of going, okay, at least I'm getting something coming in from them. And there's a lot of like free, so I think it's called Legal Aid, is a free legal kind of advice system here in Australia that you can reach out to and speak to them, and they're awesome. And they will guide you through the entire thing, because I went through not the best of divorces, unfortunately. And then on top of that, I guess, where was I going with that? Yeah, so there's heaps of legal resources and heaps of information out there. In terms of getting child support, the government is there for that as well. So you can either reach out to them and say, look, yep, you have to compulsorily get the money for me. And they do that. And that was a great help at the time, because it meant that I didn't need to be in contact when I didn't have to be. I didn't have to chase things. Yeah. And so, yeah, we're quite lucky in Australia that there is a lot of support out there. There's a lot of counselling facilities out there for women going through separation, women going through divorce. And they offer a lot of, services as well. They can push you in the right direction. So, yeah, there's heaps and heaps and heaps out there of things. But it's really getting past yourself, I guess, more than what resources is out there. It's going, okay, I'm going to be judged. And that was a big thing for me, is even when I was reaching out to my friends, I was like, which one of my friends am I going to lose now? Because I'm not in a relationship and they all are. And how are they going to perceive me? Like, single mom, I'm Sri Lankan, that's got its own stigma, and I'm going to not have a job. So great, we'll add that to the list. So it's more than knowing where the resources are. It's getting past your own kind of judgment of yourself, and actually realizing that when you reach out to your friends or reach out to your family, they're not actually judging you, even though you might not get the best responses at the time. It's because they're struggling to find out what's going on with you as well, and find out how to support you, because they may not have the answers. And if you're reaching out to them to ask them the answers, then they almost feel put on the spot and be like, oh my God, like, we don't know. So whilst it may come across as judging, it most likely isn't. It's just you going through whatever's going through for you.
And projecting it.
And absolutely projecting it. God, the amount of times I've done that. But yeah, it's when you've got that support network. So I got it from the government, and obviously family and friends as well, 100%.
No, for sure. I mean, to everyone listening to what I want to say, I mean, it's not like we chose this, but if divorce is something that is, the next step, don't let any external factor stop you. The how will show up. There is, the world is a beautiful place. Despite all evidence to the contrary in the news, the world is a beautiful place. And you matter. Your safety matters, your security matters. The rest can be figured out. More than anything else, children need a mother who is alive, whole, happy, and healthy. And this notion of trying to keep the family unit together, this notion of, I know I went through all of that, this notion that somehow, it's okay, they won't know, kids can tell everything. It doesn't matter how old they are. And just know that the legal steps, the resources, all of those are just the how. They will show up. The biggest and only step you need to take is I need help. That's it. Those 3 words. Go to one person you trust and say those 3 words. The rest, It won't be pretty. That's not what we're saying, but nothing worth it in life is pretty. And that's the best thing I can say. I'm here in the US, and my experience was similar too. There were just a ton of resources. And I've been hearing from friends in India as well who've had similar challenges that they've had. It's not easy. Nothing in life is, but your life is worth it. You know, it just is. And your child's life is worth it. I think that's the biggest message Narmie's like screaming out through the whole, you know, chapter, is that I knew that if I had to be whole, happy, and healthy for my child, I had to do these things. And please hear that from us.
Beautifully said, Veena. And, you know, one of the things as you were talking came to my mind was, when you're going through the process, it's like firefighting, and you don't really realize while you're going through this storm that there's calm, you know, on the other side, there's peace, there's growth, there's the abundance that you're looking for on the other side. And you have navigated the system in the US, Narmie has navigated in Australia, but there's so many women out there in India who probably struggling not only in the situation and the society outside. There's a pressures of fitting in and what is the right thing to do, and essentially trapped in that situation. What, through your research and having gone through this process, are you aware of any resources that they could reach out, any programs that we have within India to help those women in that situation?
Narmie, do you want to start? Do you have any insight on that, or?
Unfortunately not. I stayed very secular to Australia and what was happening in my life. But yeah, I unfortunately have nothing to contribute to that one.
Sure. So yes, there are several resources. I do not have them specifically to list out right now. And all of these are a dynamic process. So what information is available today as opposed to 6 months ago changes. There's something really important to point out too. Divorce is a legal process. So it's a legal process of separation. Sometimes that is not needed for everyone. You know, not everybody needs to go to court and get separated legally. I know so many women and, you know, marriages in India where they're theoretically divorced. You know, like they just don't have the legal document. They're either, you know, the woman's living either with her parents or her brother or somebody else, or even on her own. Some mechanisms that many will use is they'll go to live with their kids as they're getting their education. The really important thing to remember, the most important thing I can highlight is that if that's the path for you, the legal path, then yes, there are attorneys that want to help. There are systems, there are NGOs, there are all of those. The part we want to talk about is that your safety and security matters more than anything else. So don't make that optional with, you know, needing to stay in a marriage where you're not safe. The rest of it can be figured out. So that's important for everyone to hear, because there's so many, you know, we're all of us, even just the authors, are from so many countries. So every legal system is different. The resources are different, but the basic human right of dignity and freedom and safety for mother and child, and of course the husband as well, if that is the situation, then, you know, that's consistent no matter what country you live in. And so that's the main message I'd like to say to anyone. If you're faced with that moment, don't, you know, pick up the phone, get help, call the police if you need to. I mean, you know, do what you need to do. Every government, no matter where it is and no matter how it's portrayed in the news, they want you to be safe.
And I love how you put it, because I think once you know what is the right solution for you, the how will kind of come, because you will start seeking it and it'll start showing up, and rightfully said.
I just wanted to say one thing, Veena, Cameron. In India, in countries like Australia and, you know, America, or in the Western world, there is a system in place. In India, there is no system in place. And that is so worrying, because there are hundreds and thousands of women who are going through, and I'm going to spell it out here, domestic abuse, who
Yes.
have no place to go to, because going to the police is worse than, seeking help somewhere. Parents often turn their children away, saying, no, you've got to make this marriage work. Where are these people going to go? Yes, there are NGOs, they are crowded. I know, because I'm on the board of a couple of NGOs, both the children's one and a mother's one, and they just don't have capacity. They want to help, they just don't have capacity. Where are these women going to go? What do we even have a solution? And I know I've broken away from Narmie's topic and her story, but it is an important question that I think, we should ask, that India, or even, I don't know, Sri Lanka and Pakistan or Bangladesh, our systems are not very great. So
they're not, Shoma. I don't disagree at all. And it's not just in India. I mean, there is the social inequity piece is consistent no matter which, there are domestic violence shelters here in the US where, they're crammed and they're packed. And when COVID happened, I mean, the domestic violence rate, because no one, it just spiked so much. So there are challenges, but the thing is that somebody has to stand up. And in my experience, a mother is the strongest force I have known. It doesn't matter in which culture, it doesn't matter in what age, a woman will do anything for her child. And I can just say this because I was that woman. I have watched my mother. I am with all these mothers, and I know I've read and heard story after story. So my message is, because the message that there is no help is abundant. Everywhere we go, the family says that so generously that no, you got to figure it out. Like, that message is very loud and it's very clear. The message that, people like Narmie, myself, Matina, all of us are trying to give is the other side of the story. When you got through, I didn't have the amount of support. I was in a very tenuous situation. I had a wonderful mother and brother, but my situation was very tenuous, very difficult. I had to figure out step by step. And, there was no childcare. There was so many aspects. It was a complex custody valuation. What I'm trying to say is those parts are not easy, but they cannot determine asking for help.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's the message so I don't disagree at all. Even here, there are so many immigrant women, especially, who don't seek help. But my belief is, and this is where it goes to the individual level as opposed to the systemic level, is that each of us, within our sphere of influence, we all have that one or two people, and we may not speak up for our own self, but when it comes to our child, we go get that help. So I'm saying that one or that two people that you have, just go start there. And it can sometimes be as simple as just, getting some reprieve, having a place to go to. Like I said, I used to see, I lived in a hostel when I was studying, and so many mothers came and just stayed in a room with their child, and that 4 years of that is a huge break from, a drinking husband or I'm not saying those are the answers to everything. I'm saying, we got to start somewhere. Absolutely. And the how will show up. And I think if someone has a will to live, sorry, Cam.
No, I was just saying that, these issues don't have an easy solution. There's no easy button we can push today and say, start here and I'll give you a roadmap and it's going to be easy, or I'll find you a lawyer and it's going to solve the problem. Or if you have this lottery, you're going to win, you're solving the problem. It's not an easy solution. But I think the conversations are important. Asking for help is important. And I think what we are doing here is important. We are raising these stories. We are bringing these stories in front of people. We are raising these issues. Again, the awareness that this is a problem, the recognition will, and the willingness to find a solution will find a solution. And in that regards, we also want to donate all the funds that we raise from this book to help women issues, to help these women who are either struggling with going through divorce, education, taking care of children.
Violence. Yeah.
We are doing our part to kind of help in whatever way we can, right? So bringing
I'd
conversation
like to.
back.
Sorry, Cam. So sorry. I just wanted to point out one thing. There's one thing Narmie said, that she would keep hearing this voice, I'm a failure. I think it's really important for everyone to catch to that she didn't listen to that voice. That's really, really important. The voice is available to us every moment, telling us you screwed this up. Who are you to think you can do this? Who are you to speak up? Why do you think you should? Those are always available to us. And it's these choices of speaking up, and also it's the choice of presenting the other side that, what, I'm paddling really hard and I need help on days, but I am paddling. And I think that for that, we really, really appreciate it so much, Narmie.
Yeah, and not willing to give up.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a closing question, Narmie. Like, when you're actually in a situation, you just like firefighting. You're putting a Band-Aid here, putting a Band-Aid there. You're doing what needs to be done at that moment, in that moment, at that time, right? You're not looking at the bigger picture, the bigger strategy. You're not like looking at that. So looking back at your journey, would you do anything different? And what words of inspiration can you give to someone who is where you were a few years ago, standing at those crossroads?
Yeah, really good question. I don't actually think I would do anything different. I'd love to go back and say, I wouldn't have married this person. I probably should have listened to my dad's advice and all of that. But on the flip side, I'm like, would I though? I probably wouldn't, because then I wouldn't be where I am now and in this position that I am now. And, I constantly talk about him, but I wouldn't have the most amazing baby boy out of this. And I always say, yeah, my marriage was bad and I'm so glad it's over. But out of one of the worst things in my life, I have the most precious and the most amazing thing that's happened in my life. And I wouldn't give that up for anything. And he really is my why. And, when I'm putting out all these fires, everything was make sure that it's for him. It's always in his best interest. Not to say that I've sacrificed any of my happiness for him, because he wouldn't want that. And I've always made sure, and I've always said I'm not going to be the type of person that revolves their life around their child. And then when their child goes off, you go, what's happened to me? Where's my identity? We work in tandem with each other, my son and I, and it's amazing. So no, I don't think I would change anything. But what I would say is when you're really struggling, and you really feel down and out, and there were times where I was like, I can't get out of bed this morning. Like, it's just not going to happen. I can't face the world. You just kind of got to go, right, who can I call? I just need to call somebody now. And whether that's my mom or my dad, who I speak to every single day, twice a day, 3 times a day, or whether it's one of my best friends, just to go, and they'd be like, what's up? I'm like, I'm just not getting out of bed today. It's just not happening. I cannot do this. And they'd be like, okay, that's good. We've had this now, get it out of your system. Okay, right, your son needs you. Let's go. Come on, out of bed. Let's go. And then, they check in. So, life is not easy right now either. It's still tough. I'm still a single mom. I'm still trying to make it all work. But every single fire and every single thing and the resources, and you find resources anywhere really. You just have to look, and it's not easy. I know I'm making it sound easy, but there's help out there, there's friends out there, there's resources out there, and you just got to keep going. You just have to make it work somehow, even if it is as simple as I got out of bed. Sometimes that is just an achievement in itself.
Absolutely.
Rightfully said. And sometimes, it's not the solutions, it's asking the right questions and reaching out to the right people. So thank you again for being with us today. Even though we didn't solve a lot of problems, but we raised the right questions and had interesting discussions.